I'm joined now by Brian Taylor, Managing Director at Ivy Coach, who is also in the industry. This was clearly a big scam, but there are plenty of legitimate companies and counselors who are helping students get into college. What are some of the services that a company like yours would offer?
There are thousands of good private college counselors. Are there some bad ones? Sure. Like in any industry, whether it's real estate or finance, there's always going to be a couple of bad actors. In a word, what we do is we help students come across as weird, and that's how they stand out in the applicant pool. Make yourself weird.
Talk to me a little bit about the pressure that parents and students are facing to get into the school of their choice.
Well, I would argue that it's not getting more competitive each year, and people buying into that makes it only more stressful for parents and students. Yes, the admission rates at all these schools are getting lower and lower, but these colleges are getting better and better at getting unqualified applicants to apply. A C student applying to Harvard does not make the Harvard applicant pool more competitive.
A big question in looking at this case is how much the universities knew and what they could have done to prevent this. Do you think that there should be any changes in the admissions process?
Absolutely. Our former president said trust but verify. They need to trust but verify. What they can do, for instance, for athletes, don't rely on the coach's opinion. You know, if there's a swimmer, check the times. The times are all available. Check what he does in 100 freestyle. If it's a 115, this kid is not a Division I swimmer. These people are the exception to the rule, not the rule. I mean, this is utterly outrageous. But most people, they are honest, and most college counselors are honest, most students and parents are honest, and they want to beat an unfair system and an unfair game, but they want to do so legally, and they want to do so the right way, by making themselves more interesting, by being involved in the right courses and then taking the right tests. But this is just outrageous.
U.S. spirit sales rose to $27.5 billion in 2018, according to the Distilled Spirits Council. And high-end spirits are one of the key drivers of growth for the industry. Taryn Varicchio has a look at why customers are willing to spend more money for premium bourbon.
There are more than 7.5 million barrels of bourbon aging in Kentucky, including these freshly filled barrels at Wild Turkey Distillery. 10 years ago, there were only 8 distilleries in Kentucky, and as of 2018, there were 68. Liquor sales have increased 9 years in a row, and it's in part because more people are buying pricier whiskeys like Wild Turkey bourbon. And Wild Turkey is one of the oldest bourbon distilleries to weather the industry's changes. Master distiller Jimmy Russell has known this business for 65 years.
Well, you know, at my age, bourbon was strictly a Southern gentleman's drink. They got off of work, they got their cards or cigars and their bourbon, went to the back room and played cards. Now it's become a worldwide drink. Anywhere in the world now you're seeing bourbon anywhere. Australia's a huge market for us, Japan's a huge market for us, Europeans a huge market for us.
The whiskey industry is changing, and it's because young people are spending more on super premium bourbons.
In my generation, you went and bought the cheapest whiskey you could find or whatever because you were looking for the effect. Where nowadays you see this younger generation drinking a little less but drinking better. They're done on a little smaller scale, more crafted more or less. So that's really helped our industry.
Bourbon is a premium American whiskey, and it's one of the most expensive spirits you can buy. A spirit can only be considered bourbon if it's made with 51% corn and bottled at no less than 80 proof. It must be aged in charred oak barrels in the U.S. with absolutely nothing else added to it.
We're the only industry in the world that can't add color or flavor into their product. Everybody else can't. So we have to use a new barrel to get that color. And I'm going to get about 60% of my taste out of that barrel. So if I was using a used barrel or an old barrel, I wouldn't get those things. Then I would have to add stuff to it. And that's what sets bourbon apart from all other whiskeys.
Wild Turkey fills 560 barrels of bourbon a day, and the distillery will spend roughly $18 million just to supply enough barrels this year. Each one holds 53 gallons of bourbon and yields about 260 bottles, depending on how long it ages. The bourbon ages anywhere between 6 and 13 years. The longer it ages, the bolder the flavor and the bigger the price tag. Sales for super premium bourbon topped 5 million cases in the US in 2018. These high-end bottles, like the Russell's Reserve line from Wild Turkey, can cost between $35 and $65. But that's certainly not stopping people around the world from buying them.
You can go anywhere in the world, and if there's whiskey around and say Jimmy Russell's name, everybody knows it.
Join our Facebook group to keep the conversation going, and we'll see you tomorrow for another episode of Business Insider Today.